Now, so we are recording. And so again, thank you everyone for coming for our introduction and a little bit of background and expression of how we've got here. Maybe we'd like to give our attention. We're really privileged to have Supervisor Bruce McPherson from the 5th District with us here tonight. So Bruce, maybe I can hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John. I want to thank Caltrans and the Regional Transportation Commission for holding this town hall. Just after I took office in 2012, one of the first actions that I took was a tour of the San Lorenzo Valley on a Metro bus with representatives from Caltrans, our County Public Works, Metro, and the Regional Transportation Commission. We had several community members join us on that tour, and we discussed the needed improvements along Highway 9, as well as the county connected roads to Highway 9. And from that tour, the RTC worked with Caltrans to develop a master plan for Highway 9. And now the RTC, the Regional Transportation Commission, and Caltrans are working together to develop a project initiation document for that master plan to identify which projects can be built with the regular Caltrans maintenance program and which projects will require special funding to stand alone for standalone projects. It is important to acknowledge that planning and implementation of transportation projects in the state of California takes many years and millions of dollars in funding that we need to pull together through grants. But we have made tremendous progress over the past 9 years to address the concerns in the San Lorenzo Valley, and we will continue to work together to deliver the projects for the years to come. I want to thank again Caltrans for having made many simple, relatively simple safety improvements along Highway 9 already to better, such as better reflective signage, restriping repairs due to storm damage, and overhead pedestrian flashing beacons along Highway 9. This collaboration has really made a difference, and I want to once again thank Caltrans and the Regional Transportation Commission for their perseverance. And most of all, I want to thank members of the San Lorenzo Valley community for its patience with the process. And we're going to be moving onward and upward from here on. So thank you again, and I'm ready to hear the information that's about to come. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor McPherson. And also with us tonight to offer a brief greeting is Eric Henschel from Representative Anna Eshu's office. So Eric, are you there?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Supervisor McPherson and the staff at the RTC and Caltrans for hosting this virtual community meeting tonight. I'm pleased to be here on behalf of Congresswoman Anna Eshu, who of course represents the 18th Congressional District of California, including the San Lorenzo Valley. You may have seen that President Biden recently unveiled his American Jobs Plan, which is a $2 trillion investment in America's crumbling infrastructure to repair our roads, bridges, highways, and transit, address the climate crisis, and create millions of jobs. This plan includes $115 billion for improving roads and bridges and highways, as well as main streets, and will modernize 20,000 miles of roads in the United States. And Congresswoman Eshu is very pleased to support the American Jobs Plan, and Congress is now working to write this legislation and to pass this plan into law. And so we think that this will have great benefits to all communities in California's 18th Congressional District, including the San Lorenzo Valley. And Congresswoman Eshu knows that transportation projects are a partnership between state, local, and federal partners. And so she hopes to continue to be a partner with your efforts, and we're looking forward to learning more about the project tonight.
Thank you very much, Eric. And again, thank you, Supervisor McPherson. It's true, we have worked together for many years, a tremendous amount of effort. Going back to that bus ride that you mentioned, we've had many times in person to meet as a community to do some of the early visioning. And now we're glad to meet together in this virtual environment. And I recall some of those early in-person meetings that we had as well. You know, one of the first things we talked about was the need to stick to the effort, you know, to have the stomach to keep going because things take time. And here tonight, we're at a very important stage, and we're glad to keep that continuity with you. We're glad to keep that outreach with you. And tonight, we're going to be presenting 2 projects as information for everyone tonight. Next slide, please. So this is a slide that maybe you've seen before. We show it not to scare everyone, but maybe just to kind of demonstrate not just where we are in the process, but what the process looks like. This is the reality of the Caltrans project development process. And the two projects we're going to talk about tonight are in the project initiation phase, or where that orange arrow is. And our presenters are going to talk definitely more about that this evening. And as the discussion goes on, you're going to hear from our project engineers about the different phases. You're going to hear things like environmental document, right-of-way, design, construction, and things like that. So this is just a visual to demonstrate the process. And while it looks like we might be in the very beginning, we've actually come a long way to get ourselves here. And that's really to the credit of everyone and their effort, and they're sticking with the process. So just a couple housekeeping items before we get started. Next, we're going to hear from Brianna Goodman from Santa Cruz Regional Transportation Commission. And then after Brianna, we're going to go to Joseph Salazar and Justin McMullen, who are our two project engineers for the two projects. And there is a question and answer feature. If you have questions that you'd like to ask this group after the presentation, we definitely will have we're going to allow plenty of time for that. So please give your attention now to Brianna, and note too in the question and answer that we're going to post our Caltrans Title VI message as well. So Brianna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I was on the project team for the creation of the Highway 9 San Lorenzo Valley Complete Streets Corridor Plan, and I'm the RTC lead and working with Caltrans and local jurisdictions to implement the plan. I also happen to be a lifelong SLV resident. The SLV plan was a true community-based plan and reflects the needs and ideas of the many members of the SLV community that helped us by participating in our workshops, our public meetings, our focus groups, and our surveys. You marked up maps, talked with our team, asked questions, sent emails, and attended public hearings. This is your Complete Streets plan, laying out a path forward to enhance safety and accessibility for people using all modes of transportation, and helping Highway 9 evolve into a true main street with comfortable sidewalks and bike lanes, safer crosswalks, more accessible transit, and smoother traffic flow. Through collaboration with Santa Cruz County Public Works and Caltrans, since the SLV plan was adopted, we have enhanced bike and pedestrian signage and paved an alternate bike and pedestrian route from Felton to the SLV schools. We have funded and installed pedestrian activated flashers at some of our busiest crosswalks. We have completed a project initiation document, or PID, for a new pedestrian facility to connect downtown Felton to the SLV schools, and that project is now moving into the next phase. Tonight, we are here to discuss two more PIDs. One is for a Caltrans-funded capital preventative maintenance repaving project from Santa Cruz to Felton, which we will refer to as the Felton CAP-M PID. The other is a Measure D funded PID to analyze other project areas in the SLV plan from Felton to just above Boulder Creek. We will refer to this as the Complete Streets PID. So what is a PID? The project initiation phase is the first formal Caltrans project phase in developing a solution for a specific transportation problem, and occurs in prior to the environmental phase of a project. The project initiation phase follows the system and regional planning process, which in this case was the SLV plan. The outcome of the project initiation process is a PID that establishes a well-defined purpose and need statement, a proposed project scope tied to a reliable cost estimate, and a schedule for subsequent phases of environmental, final design, and construction. Completion of the CAP-M PID will mean that Caltrans will be able to scope many of the project areas identified in the SLV plan for Felton into their already planned paving work, and they deserve a huge thank you for this from the SLV community. The components that can't be incorporated into their final project will be included in their PID and environmental phases, so that the RTC can move directly into the final project phases as soon as funding becomes available. Completion of the Complete Streets PID will mean RTC can know which project ideas in the SLV plan are feasible on Highway 9 from Caltrans' perspective. And then RTC can begin seeking funding for final design, environmental review, and construction, which we are already doing. I don't want to jinx it by over-promising, but we have applied for exciting new funding for Complete Streets improvements from the Complete Streets PID, and we'll be applying for even more when the PID is completed, using the $10 million set aside from Measure D for SLV as a grant match. As an SLV resident, I am very excited for all of the great improvements coming down the pipeline and all the benefits they will bring to our community. Thank you, Caltrans, for working with us to enhance safety, promote economic vitality, and support bicycling and walking on Highway 9. Thank you, John.
All right, thanks, Brianna, appreciate that. So tonight again, our two projects we're going to talk about, they are distinct, but they are closely related. And you're likely going to recognize some of the images from the SLV planning study, because that was the source document where many of the elements that are being considered in our project have come from. So this is your plan. These were your goals. These were your opportunities brought forward and your community values. And that's what we use as a foundational document. So first, let's give our attention to Justin McMullen, who will briefly present to you what we call the Felton CAP-M. And as you listen to the presentation, maybe look for the complete street elements that are being included in this very important pavement project.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin McMullen, and I'm the project engineer for the Felton CAP-M project. The Felton CAP-M is a preventative maintenance project which intends to extend the service life of the existing pavement with minor distress for a minimum of 5 years. The additional assets part of this project include Americans with Disabilities Act compliant curb ramps, culverts, and guardrail replacement. The project would bring the facilities up to good condition and meet current crash standards. Within the project limits, the San Lorenzo Valley Plan was used to identify complete street opportunities within the town of Felton. Our project limits on SR9 start at Highway 1 and end 150 feet south of El Solid Heights Drive, post mile 0.46 to post mile 7.5. The complete street elements to be addressed would begin at Laurel Drive to Kirby with new sidewalk. When taking a look at our layout, you may see resemblance to the SLV plans. We show sidewalks and bike lanes on both sides of Highway 9. In addition, we have restriped a 12-foot two-way left turn lane. The plan also depicts a proposed crosswalk pending analysis in red, which is not part of the scope and will need to be analyzed in the next phase of the project. At Graham Hill Road and Highway 9, we have included a right turn channelization. Currently, the right turn lane is free right. By not allowing it to be a free right, we create better pedestrian access. Realigning the right turn lane will allow storage for right turns while also allowing guidance for bicyclists with the separation of the through movements. Additional improvements include reconstructed sidewalk, island, ADA curb ramps, and enhanced crosswalks. With the help from SCC-RTC, we have identified areas within Felton that could benefit from improved sidewalk, crosswalks, and right turn channelization. We have utilized some of the typical cross sections provided in the San Lorenzo Valley Complete Streets Corridor Study and have modified them accordingly. With the SLV plan in mind, we analyzed their feasibility. The pedestrian concepts were mapped using GIS to get an idea of existing utilities, right-of-way, environmental, and physical restrictions that might occur. We provide environmental mapping to have the area studied for project approval and environmental documents. By obtaining environmental clearance, the project has the ability to incorporate additional funding from other sources for future construction of complete street elements, giving our local partners opportunities to apply for special funding. Additional areas scoped for environmental clearance include multi-use path south of Laurel to Redwood, sidewalk at the entrance of Henry Cowell State Park, and a continuation of the multi-use from Redwood to Lakeview Drive with the addition of viaducts to widen the roadway. Any restriping for complete streets elements at the school access will be reviewed during the next phase of the project. The impacts of the project's assets required a higher level of environmental document, streamlining the environmental clearance of the complete streets elements identified in the SLV plan. A brief overview of what we discussed tonight. Redesign right turn channelization at Highway 9 and Graham Hill. Placing sidewalk along SR9 from Laurel to Kirby. Drafting the environmental clearance areas and studies for future potential projects. These studies would include the multi-use path, viaducts, sidewalk at Henry Cowell entrance, and restriping in front of the school. The project is set to complete PA&ED 2025, with construction in the summer of 2027. And with that, I'll let Joseph finish with the complete streets PID locations.
Thank you, Justin, and welcome Santa Cruz. I'm Joseph Salazar, the project engineer on the Complete Streets Corridor project, and this project has been done in collaboration with the San Lorenzo Valley Plan and RTC, Brianna having been a huge help and our key contact for this project. The goal of this project is to identify your top priority needs along that corridor, as well as outlining how we can resolve those problems and figuring out what feasible solutions we have. So we want to make these projects able to be branched off and competitive for federal and state funding. And we have scheduled to complete this project by the end of 2021. So far, we have reviewed the local concepts, outlined the project scope and potential solutions for each of those locations, and coordinated with adjacent projects to avoid duplicate work. The locations we'll cover in this presentation are from Glen Arbor to Felton, Bend Lomond, Irwin Way, and North and South Boulder Creek. This project continues from the Felton Cap M that Justin had just covered, and it has a minor overlap at the school as covered in Justin's slides. So heading north from the school, we've scoped out bike lanes on both the north and southbound sides of the road where feasible, and a sidewalk on the southbound side to be reviewed in the future for feasibility. These will provide connectivity up to Glen Arbor, where the southbound bike lane continues, and we have also mapped out sidewalk on both sides of the road as shown here, along with crossing improvements down at Willow Brook. And up north from there, at Highlands Park, we have designed bus stops for both the north and southbound bus routes, as well as a multi-use trail along the southbound side that continues as site conditions allow northwards, as shown in this slide. This allows for connectivity up to Bend Lomond, where as the roadway widens out, we've mapped out bike facilities, improved parking at storefronts, and updated sidewalks. A key update, as you will note on this map, is over at Love Creek Road, where we've made a clear delineation for vehicle access to Highway 9, as well as including sidewalk or crosswalks for the San Lorenzo community. And moving northwards up from there, past Mill Street, you'll see the sidewalk continuing up, going through a section of frequently impacted vegetation, which has been scoped for removal. And then further north, as we go near Alba Street, we have laid out delineations for better ease of driver access, as well as adding a north and southbound bike lane, while maintaining the northbound side sidewalk as shown in orange. And then in Brookdale, due to site conditions and roadway width limitations, Brianna has been great in coordinating with the owner of the Brookdale Lodge on the possibility of including sidewalk within his parking lot area to be reviewed in the future. This would allow for safe pedestrian access northwards and would also limit the need for tree removal. Similarly, on the southbound side, we've included a multi-use path segment just opposite from the inn, which would also minimize vegetation impact. And this brings us to the rural section, which is south of South Boulder Creek. And we have added in north and southbound bike access, which continues into South Boulder proper, where as the roadway widens out, we've added, similar to Ben Lomond, updated parking and sidewalks, as well as curb ramp extensions to facilitate pedestrian crossings at intersections. And finally, at the far north end of Boulder Creek, near the Mountain Store, we have added bike lanes on the north and southbound side, as well as crossing improvements on the northbound side. Our goals moving forward from here are to deliver the project initiation document by 2021. And from there, SCC RTC would branch off projects from this document and pursue funding. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Joseph, and thank you, Justin. That was a nice overview of both of those projects. We're bringing this slide up now to show you. It's probably something you recall. We've shown it at several of our public meetings. We've showed it at several actually of our RTC board meetings as well. What this really demonstrates is it's a picture of the partnership that we have, and it's an example of the many different projects that are going concurrently right now along Highway 9, along the San Lorenzo Valley corridor. And you know, the blue line up top there, the Complete Streets PID, the one that Joseph just talked about, this is a game changer. This is really the first of its kind because it's allowed us to take the recommendations from a planning study like the San Lorenzo Valley Complete Streets Plan. It's allowed us to have the opportunity to take those concepts and to vet them more fully. And some of the examples of what was looked at was in Joseph's presentation this evening. You'll also notice that while there appears to be overlap, there's not redundancy because the overlap is intentional. It allows us to have the opportunity to see what elements might fit in which projects at the appropriate time. So that's just kind of a high level look at the two projects as well as the overall corridor and the things that are going on. And there's a lot more certainly we can say about both, but really it's important now to hear from you, the community. So if there are questions in the Q&A, then we will take those now. Brianna, how's that look?
Folks, if you want to navigate down to the bottom of your screen, a series of icons should pop up, and one of them is Q&A. And if you click that, you'll be able to type in questions for us, and we will be able to answer them live. So please let us know if you have anything you want us to elaborate on.
While we pause for that, we want to again express appreciation for all your participation. Supervisor McPherson, for your great leadership on this whole endeavor. Going back from the very beginning, we really appreciate that. And again, there's phases ahead of us, so we look forward to continuing that.
Maybe I'll ask a question while we're waiting. The project initiation document is supposed to be done by this year, 2021. Is that on schedule? And in essence, is it done, or is it going to be done by the end of the year, or where are we?
Joseph, do you mind answering that question?
Oh, definitely. So this one is scoped and on time to be done at the end of 2021.
Okay, good.
Great question. And we do see a few things coming in.
Got one from Jim B. He just says, no questions. This is fabulous. Thanks for including the community for input. However, Rick Hyman says, I have several questions. Is there a way to unmute me so I don't have to write them all? As folks probably know, if they've attended webinars like this before, the typing is sort of just makes it easier if there's a lot of questions coming thick and fast, but it doesn't seem like that's a problem tonight. So I don't know, are folks all right with us just turning on Rick's microphone? I feel like that would be fine.
Rick, I think we're going to give you the floor. So
yeah, just so everyone knows, I believe Rick Hyman's on the RTC's Bicycle Commission. So he's already a volunteer, essentially a volunteer member of our staff by being a member of our committee. So I will let him speak.
So Rick, we're going to give you a floor for a few brief questions. And if there's things we can't get to tonight, feel free to submit those and we'll give you a better answer if we can't answer that tonight.
Okay, Rick,
okay.
You can go ahead. And
okay, hi everybody. Yeah, I represent this district on the bike committee. The question on the first project that was mentioned, it had a completion date of 2027, but part of the project was specific, like the turn lane, and part of the project was just doing environmental review. So my question is, does that mean by 2027 only the environmental review is going to be done, or are projects that end up happening based on the environmental review, will they be completed by 2027?
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate that question. I think Justin, maybe we'll let you clarify a little on the timeline.
So the environmental documents should be completed by the end of 2025. And 2027, the CAPM part of the project will be constructed. So I believe once it's completed in 25, then should funding come, those projects can be broken off separately.
Thanks. And I like changing the free right turn. I think that can help. Okay, on the next project, that was the second project that was described. In parts of the project, there is going to be multi-use paths. I wasn't sure if they're all going to be on the same side of the road, but assuming that there are some multi-use paths or sidewalks on different sides of the road, where they end, will there be crosswalks so you could get to the other side? Or let's say you're walking, are you just going to be left like nowhere?
Joseph, there you go.
So that one, the multi-use paths will be put in where they're able to be put in, because Route 9 does have a lot of very narrow sections with cliff on one side and fairly steep embankment on the other side. They won't be able to extend fully up to certain parts of the corridor. Where safety is able to clear a crosswalk, we'll be able to put one in, but it would be connectivity where feasible, and there'd be a lot of studies being put in to determine where crossing would or wouldn't be allowed.
Okay,
Very
well, I assume you'll try to do as much connectivity as you can. Another question is, on the cross sections, in most places where there was 4 feet or more, it was shown as being marked as a bike lane. There were a couple cross sections where it was 4 feet, but I didn't see the bike lane marking, and I was wondering if those are going to be bike lanes too. I don't remember which. You showed a bunch of cross sections.
Yeah, so there will be sections with the existing shoulder left as is. It would be accessible to bicyclists, but it may not be designated as an official bike lane.
And why, and what's the practical difference, if any?
That one I'll have to hand over to Claudia.
All right. Yeah, so it depends on the parking. So if we have it as a bike lane and there's only 4 feet, then it's only for bikes, and we wouldn't be able to do any parking or any other type of work or other type of use of that area. So it really depends on the section of road that we're looking at. And so it'll be further looked at in PNED.
But there wouldn't be parking within the shoulder, right? You're talking about if there's parking beyond the shoulder?
So the parking could be allowed within the shoulder, depending on where we're at.
Thank you,
Right,
Claudia.
You know, I know there's little room to begin with. So that's why it's such a difficult decision to make at this time at the pit level. And we were trying to incorporate, as many of the options as possible. And then once we have surveys, when we start PNED, we'll be able to request surveys. And that's when we really can look at to see what we can do reasonably.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
personally, if it's a 4 foot or wider shoulder, whether it says bike lane or not, isn't a big deal. I don't think for most riders up there. If there's going to be parking in that shoulder area, not only does that impact the bicyclists, with parked cars, but then the parking going in and out, that's a further conflict. So the more of that you could remove, the better.
Right.
Right.
And then in Brookdale, it looks constrained. You had only 2 feet on one side and 4 feet on one side for shoulders. And you were mentioning maybe working with the property owner to get some additional width for sidewalks. Can you look at that segment anymore and see if there's either any more room to get 4 foot shoulders and or to reduce the travel lanes there to 11 feet so you can get an additional 2 foot shoulder?
That one will definitely be looking more into it in the next phase of the project. We've scoped it out as much as we could see feasibly doing work in that area. but there were a lot of considerations out in front of the inn. So we're hoping to add in as much as we can, but still have the project be able to be delivered.
Okay, and
Thanks so
then my
much.
final question,
We've got a couple more questions coming in the Q&A, so let's turn to those folks for a
I have
couple.
one more question, please.
One more? Okay.
Yes.
One more.
Okay, so when the bike lane crosses intersections, cross streets, will it have any kind of marking, either continuous bike lane marking or green striping or anything like that?
Oh, for that one, it would be determined later on how the striping would be done. For this phase of the project, we're mostly looking at the environmental scoping and feasibility on site locations. So the actual final striping design wouldn't be finalized at this stage.
Great. Thank you, Rick. We appreciate it. Those are great questions. And we encourage you everyone ongoing, as you like to provide input, please direct those to Brianna, and and those type of questions will be answered. So I think we have a couple more, and I thought I saw a hand raised maybe from Justin, if he's still there, but go ahead, Brianna.
Yeah, well, the next question we've got in the Q&A is from Melissa. Thank you so much for the presentation. Great to see all the updates in our community. I think my question was answered, but I would love to see a second crosswalk be considered on the south side of Redwood Drive connecting to Henry Cowell. I was also wondering if protected bike lanes with barriers were considered along Highway 9. Thanks for that.
Oh, I think you're frozen, Brianna, but that's okay. You got the question. So thank you, Melissa. I think maybe in the context of the conversations, you see that.
Melissa,
Oh. Did you finish, Brianna? Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to add that the crosswalk, we were looking at moving it to the south side of Redwood Drive for the HSIP project. That was actually something we were already planning on funding and having completed. However, the analysis of that move determined that that was not actually helpful from a traffic standpoint. And so we kept it at the original location, and instead we added the pedestrian activated flasher so that can alert cars that are coming around the curve, because you can't actually see folks waiting for the crosswalk if you were to move it to a different location. So that was considered, but traffic folks decided that that was not a good option. So yeah, I was trying to answer the first one in terms of what RTC has already done for work on that. So you can go ahead and take it away, John.
Okay, sorry. No, when a question gets to get answered live, that's fantastic. In the course of the discussion, I thought I saw that Justin Acton had raised his hand. I don't know if Justin, if you had a question you want to put into the chat. But if not, again, we appreciate everyone's participation tonight. And this recording this presentation is being recorded. So we'll make attempts to find the right place to post it for everyone's viewing at a future time. This is, again, the beginning of the process. This is by no means the end, but what's great, and I hope everyone's appreciating, and some have commented that in their comments, that we've come a long way. And so that's with everyone's help. So we really appreciate that. Brianna, before we close, any final comments?
John, can I just say I just like to ask a general question. This is a challenge. I mean, we have talked about the cliff sides and the mountain, the topography, the geography of it. Have you addressed any more challenging improvement project than what we've had here, with just the reality of what we're dealing with here? It really limits what you can do, I know.
I think if you looked up the word constrained in the dictionary, you'd see the Highway 9 logo, right? It's very true. It's very constrained by vegetation, by trees, by cliffs, of course, the San Lorenzo River. So that's why this kind of very slow and pragmatic approach to looking at each of the elements proposed in the planning study has taken us to this point now. We've taken our time at it because we really need to look and see where things can be put. You can't build off of a cliff edge, and you can't tear down a mountain. It's challenges. You might relate some of the challenges to your question, Supervisor, about where else. You might even think of the Big Sur Highway 1 segments, where Mother Nature every day is pushing and pulling on the roadway to try to make changes. And so we're responding as we can. So our teams are doing their best with the resources we have and the ability to keep the road open. You know, that it's a very important corridor. It's your main street for all the towns along the community. So it's, you know, it's definitely our priority to keep it open and keep it in the best condition possible. So not seeing any further questions in the Q&A. We thank you again, everyone. Here's the website for the SLV plan and the way to get a hold of Brianna. If by chance you watch this video later and you have questions, please email those to Brianna and she'll get those to our project engineers for review. That
Thank
said,
you for going to that slide, Joseph. I did just want to say I saw quite a few folks join sort of midway or towards the end of the presentation. So we're going to post it. And if you do have any additional questions about what you didn't get to see covered at the beginning, please email me and I will respond. So thank you.
all right, that's a goodbye and thank you for participating, everyone, tonight.